One of the big things with HTML are the ability to add in forms. And what forms do is they give you the ability to create an interaction with your web users. So they allows you to present a place where you can take in some information. So if you want to create maybe a simple login or something like that, you would have a username, and then you need a way or a place for the user to actually input their username. And this is where forms come in. So we've got username, input, type, and we've got several different types that we can choose from, and I'm going to go through them as we progress through the course or through the lesson. So we're just going to give it a name, and this is what it's used to reference on the other end. So if we had something like a username or something like that, we could pick it up on the server level as user name without the E, or maybe I'll just put that E in there. So it doesn't have to be the same as this. This is just what you're using it and how you're referencing that username. And also, besides the username, we might want to have the ability to have a password. So this, again, this is done through the forms like this. I'm going to do a line break there, and I'm going to do input, type, and this time I'm going to do type of password and the name. So just to be different, I'm going to call it something like that. And this, again, this is going to be used to pick that up on the other end from the server end. And when we type it in here, we'll see that we can get a username, but watch what happens with password. So this is actually hidden. So if I was to change this back to text, we would see the content that's presented within there. But if I keep it, so it's actually trying to save that password. So that's the difference between the different types that are available. We can really easily present all of these customized types as needed within our forms to get the proper data and present the form within a readable format for users. There are also different types of inputs that you might see. So we've got different ones like radio buttons. So if I had save name or something like that, so here I would need an input, and this type is going to be a radio, so for short for radio button, and name, let's just call it saved, so without the vowels. And we can also even input values, speaking of vowels and values, so we can present a default value. So if we had a username, I could have a username in there. So let's close this one off so I can save properly. You can see right away that we've got a username in there, so it's all ready to go with that username. And then with the radio buttons, we need to present a value within them as well. So maybe we can just have a yes, and then I'm going to do another radio button with no, because we do want to provide the user that option. And here's where I'm going to just do no, and here's where I'm going to do yes, and put a line break there. So save name, yes or no. And so watch what happens here, because I've given it the same name. So when I click one and I click the other one, that one gets unclicked. And this is because I gave it the same name. If they have different names, you can click both of them. And once you click them, they're not like checkboxes. They're actually just get filled in. So the idea with radio buttons is you would have multiple ones tied by the same name, and you could click between them. There's also when you want to come in and you want to have it checked right away, we can save it and we can start out with that one being checked, and then the user could go no or yes. So again, depending on the preference and how you want to build out your form, there's quite a lot of different options available to you. So every form needs a way to submit that input, and of course we do have a way in HTML to do that. So input type is going to be submit, and see right away it adds in that submit button. Let's say I didn't want to have a value of submit, but I want to have a value of login. I can update that by changing the value of the submit button to be login, and this is going to do the same thing where it's automatically by default going to allow us to submit the page. So with forms, there's a few other important things to note. So we've got the ability for action. So this is where the form is actually going to get submitted, and most of the time you're going to be submitting it to a server page, so like a PHP page or something like that. You can also present it as an AJAX call, and that's done within JavaScript, and without a page refresh it gives you the ability to submit content. And just basically with forms, it's just a way to pull in that data from the user and allow that user to add their inputs. With our submission, we also have an option of method, so we can do either a get or a post. And you see there's really nothing changing here as I'm typing these in, because these are all handled on the part of the server end, so get and post. I can actually show you that there is a difference here when we are submitting them, so I'm going to open up my editor, save it in the editor, and I'm going to just actually submit it to the same page so that we don't lose our actual page that we're working off of. Let's go back over here and refresh it, so we see that we've got our username, we've got all of that information, so I'm just submitting it, filling this out, yes, no, and doing login. So with the post, we saw we didn't get anything transferred in that string there, in the top string, but when I change it to get, just show you what's gonna happen here. So I'll just refresh that, and now we've got a username, a password, yes, no, and we see now when we submit it, it actually gets shown in the URI, and this is the difference of security. So when you want to, when you're worried about the security of the content you're submitting, definitely use post, because it's not going to be a visible URI string. So here we've got all of the content that I entered in, and we can see here that I had a password, so even though it was a hidden password, we see it being presented here. So we definitely don't want that to happen, especially with sensitive things like passwords. So whenever you're using sensitive information, use post, and whenever it's just regular passive information like search engine queries and search queries, stuff like that, then you can just use the regular get. And get is also, it's going to be limited to the amount of data that you can present this way, and post gives you the ability to present a whole lot more data. So that's the big difference between the two, that it gives you a really nice ability to transfer data more securely. So in the next lesson, we're going to look deeper at forms. I'm going to show you a few more really cool form options now available with HTML5 that we didn't have before, but they really do save us a lot of time. So I'm going to show you how to add those into your HTML form. So that's coming up in the next lesson.